So I thought about something interesting, which is, let me just check, landscape building in Blender. It's a really great concept. If you see this plane over here on the left, right here in the little white square, you'll see that that would be the character size, and this is the landscape. And this is definitely in Blender game. I'll show you. And this would be your game, and it's pretty massive, and it can be easily done. I get it. This is not water. I get it. It's just painted on, but you put water over it, and that'll be fine. It's essentially what it is. It's a landscape that you can build on. It's something that I've thought a lot of Blender games, not Blender games, but Blender game devs, don't really go towards something that's this essential, and it's because you build your game and you build plane by plane and you build your ground, and you're like, huh, now I have to do it again, and I just don't want that. I don't want that. This actually doesn't take up a lot of space. This is like just 1,000,000 faces, and that's for your whole landscape. Like compared to this size, compared to this plane right here, it's pretty simple concept. I'm gonna go over some of the landscapes I built. Just think of them as concepts, don't take too much into them. This is like a canyon based landscape. I built it. It looks almost exactly like how it looks when you press play, but it's darker. Canyon based landscape, that's pretty cool. And don't worry too much about the purple blue water, because that's not going to be purple blue water when you actually put the water in it. And then I'm going to get into and my first landscape didn't turn out exactly too well, but yeah, it was my first landscape, and it still turned out pretty decent. Let's go over some of them. This was my first landscape: hills, a little river with a lake. I mean, it was pretty simple to do, and I'm gonna go over some more of them. File, open, recent. And this is one I didn't paint yet, but this is like mountains and hills on the other side with a river going through. I mean, it's a simple concept, and think about how big these things are. Like you could build, I don't even have to make these mountains are comparably probably too big. Honestly, the hills are too big, and I'm going to get into the details of making it not so big. You can see a river going down here and a river going through the whole landscape. It's pretty decent idea. Landscape building in Blender is a pretty decent idea, and I think that it doesn't get enough credit. And so I'm going to build one. I'm going to build a landscape. So I'm going to open new, and we're going to start building a landscape. And this is going to be a way more detailed landscape than other landscape builds. So I'm going to ask you to keep along. I'm going to turn this into a sun, and we're going to see what we can do with this. Alright, cool. So first thing I'm going to do is build a plane, and I'm going to press S.1. That's going to be your player. Your player is this plane, or the size of this plane, like the width of this plane and the height of the width of this plane and the length of this plane. It's that size. So your player's that, and then I'm going to go ahead and give it a new material, and we're going to call it player. And I'm also going to get out of cycles and go into game, and then obviously change this. So, new material player. And the color, I'm going to make it like obvious color. And then I'm going to create a new plane, and then I'm going to call this plane ground. I'm going to go ahead and call this player plane, because it's not necessarily a player, but it is a player plane. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do that's the camera. I'm going to go ahead and put the camera over the player so you get an idea of the height. Okay. And so new material, and then you're going to call it ground. You're probably going to make it look like dirt, but it's not going to matter. So don't worry too much about it. S100, scale it to 100, and now you got a big landscape to work with. And so you're going to go into edit mode, and you're going to subdivide. Tools, subdivide 3 times, 4 times actually this time, because we want it to be more detailed. So subdivide 4 times. I'm gonna make the edges look like valleys and hills, and I'm gonna add some noise in the middle. I might add a river later on, but I'm not gonna worry about it right now because I've learned from the 4 landscapes I've built that you don't want to go too big with it, these hills and mountains, because then you kind of limited yourself to what you can build in the center. And you can also do an ocean, you know, on this side. I mean, I guess I could go into object mode and I'll create an ocean, why not? And I know that it's unorthodox to use the ocean modifier in Blender. I'm just using it for reference. That's not exactly how I would do it. So S10. Ooh, that's too big. 5, 4, 3, 2. Damn, 2? 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And then I'm going to lower it. Boom. Ocean. There you go. I guess this could be a river, but we'll worry about that later. So the next thing I'm going to do is sculpt. I'm going to do add, and I'm going to take the strength down to 250. You can see that there's subtle differences, and now I'm going to do some subtracting in the middle. And for the river that I want to make. Okay, there we go. Or lake river thing. Okay, now I'm going to go back into edit mode and create more noise, because I know that for my river I don't want this side to poke out, so I'm going to create some more noise. And then what I'm going to do is press all, and then I'm going to subdivide it. Tool subdivide again, and this time it's going to be a little bit more noise, not too much. Again, remember how big your player is. You don't want the mountains to be too big, you don't want the hills to be too big unless you plan on making a bigger landscape, because I've realized that from the get-go that it will fill up the whole landscape if you mess up. So I'm just gonna do this real quick, and I'm kinda gonna manually create some noise with the smaller squares I got to create this lake thing I got going on here. And then we're gonna select all, and we're gonna smooth vertex. And then we're going to go and subdivide again. Keep in mind the faces, we're at 4,000 right now. I'm going to go back into sculpt mode. I'm going to go into subtract because I kind of want to see this river go places. And then I'm going back into add. For noise and detail. I'm also going to change this to material so I can see it better. Control Z that. I'm going to take the strength down a little lower. About 144 probably do it. Yeah, 144. And then I'm going to start adding some noise, and so that's going to be, this is going to be the tedious part. I'm going to smooth vertex one more time. Going to add a subdivision, and then I'm going to add some noise with my sculpt. This time I'm going to drop this down to roughly 8 pixels and drop the strength up a little bit. You can kind of see the noise working its magic. Of course, you wouldn't see all these lines unless you're going to make it really, really like unlimited airspace, but you wouldn't see these lines honestly, like in the game. So that's good. Do some subtracting. Kind of go in circles with the subtracting. And again, I'm going back to edit mode. 33,000 edges one more time. Subdivide. Sculpt mode. Same thing, 8. Probably going to soften the strength just a little bit. And I'm actually going to test play this landscape when I'm done with it. I'm going to import my player and stuff like that. I'll pause the video during that, and then I'll test play the landscape to show you how valuable it is to have a landscape. going back into edit mode, going to press smooth vertex one time, going back into object mode to check out what it looks like. Checking my player. Okay, it seems like we're gonna want. It seems like I think that might be good. Let me press smooth using smooth tool. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good actually. I'm gonna grab my ocean. I'm gonna kind of move it in. And I'm gonna raise it up a little bit. Just to reference where I might have water. Normally you'd use a water plane, that's fine. This might be too much water though. Second. I'm actually going to have to sculpt this to fix it, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do subtract, bring the strength up a little bit, add a little bit more radius. Sculpting the wrong thing. There we go. I'm going to do a little bit of adding to fix it out. Oh. Cool. And now we have something to look at, work at, and stuff like that. Alright, so I could go on, I could keep editing this thing all day and, you know, not have any problems. But I know that this is for tutorial purposes, so I'm gonna say I'm done with editing. I'm gonna go into vertex paint. This is not the actual how the actual landscape is going to be colored, obviously. This is just you know, what you generally want. Essentially, it's why I use vertex paint. So I'm going to go into vertex paint. Yep, that tends to happen. And then I'm going to I think that under the water we want a muddy color, so that's what I'm going to do. Give roughly a muddy color, just in general. And then I'm going to add some grass. And making the grass, I noticed that if you give it a little bit of a gray tint, I think it looks better with the gray tint, honestly. Also, did I create? Yeah, I did. Okay. And you gotta realize how massive this landscape is. You looking at it from far away will be underwhelmed, but once you play it, you'll see why. I tried to close in the muddiness of my water so much, and I might go back to material mode to fix the specular, but I don't think it's going to fix it. Hardness, yeah, it will. It will. Just going to kind of paint it all with green. Why? Well, I can edit a lot of it, but the thing about that is I don't want to see any holes in it, if you will. So I kind of do want some rockiness on my hills, so that's what I'm going to go for. You can also use textures. You can use textures. You can stroke differently. I'm going to add a smooth stroke, maybe, to add some brownness, if you will, to my hills. Just for the sake of having it. And what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to come back with a green tint. So I'm going to take the strength down. I'm going to take off the smooth stroke. I'm going to add my green tint, which is going to be gray, yellow, green. And we kind of get some detail going on. And I'm going to add this tint of green to my already grayish green, and then I'm also going to add some different types of green across, for the sake of making it look pretty detailed. I'm going to check my camera. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it by the z-axis. To do that, I'm going to go into object mode. And obviously you know the basics, so I don't know which area I want to look at. I think what I want to do is take my player and move it over. and rotate it by the z-axis roughly that way. Probably drop him down on the ground. So you get an idea of how big this thing is. That looks pretty good, honestly. That looks decent for, you know, a first, how long have I been in here? 25-minute build. That's pretty decent for a 25-minute build. Probably want to clean up this white. Again, you can fix this by using the muddy color. Alright, so I'm about to go bring my player in to show how, you know, big this thing is. So, 1 second. I also think I like that color for hills. So, 1 second. Just for detail. And generally speaking, you're going to want to add a world horizon. I think the blue would be nice for this one. Probably a sky blue. And that lighten everything up a bit, add some environmental lighting, about 100, add some mist. We're going to go with 50, possibly 75, to a depth of 110. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, I gotta go into object mode. Sorry about that. The mist might not be small enough, so I'm gonna take it down. That looks pretty decent. That looks definitely detailed, definitely decent. You can continue and continue and continue to make this thing look detailed. So anyways, I'm gonna bring in a player so you can get a perspective. And we're back, and I'm gonna go to my player that I created, and we're gonna explore the world. In fact, I'll give you a decent build for that player, by the way. I'm going about 0.05 right now as far as speed goes. It's a simple player. It's just a cube with a thing. I didn't add a jump yet, but this is your landscape. And keep in mind, compared to the ground, I'm at like kind of like jogging speed. And this is great for open worlds, and this is not taking up as much memory as you think it is. Like I said, I only got, what's it, 67,000 faces. Think about that real quick. and think how big this landscape is. I also got some mist. I got some sky going on. Super easy build, super easy to have. Just a simple landscape, and if I feel like the noise is too much, I'll just smooth vertex. And I kind of don't like, you know, the specular, but you know, that can be fixed. And it simply is that's what it is. And I actually, you know, I enjoy this landscape. Open world games need to have a landscape, and that's why I did this video. It's because I wanted people who use Blender or prefer Blender to have an open world experience, to have an open world landscape, to have this, you know. And the best way to do that is shrink your player to divide it by 10 and multiply your plane by 100, and then you get this big nice landscape. You can make a nice player still, because and there's that mist that's showing. It's like an environmental mist. Then you got, you know, it's crappy, but you got this water plane. Obviously it's crappy. You can add texture to it later and stuff like that, but like I said, this is a small build. I haven't spent much time on this build, and I already got a landscape going. And then you got, you know, your little ocean over here and stuff like that. And it's like, this isn't too hard to do. I mean, this is essentially what happens in Unreal is they take a plane and they sculpt it. There's a little bit more, you know, things you can do. Likewise in Blender, there's a couple cool things you can do with making a landscape, because remember, you have the power of a 3D modeler. You're the one choosing to turn it into a game. If you want to do that, all the more power to you. It's open source, no royalties needed. That's amazing. You know, that's pretty passion. So anyways, that's it. That's my landscape build. It's simple. You can make a landscape. I don't care. I don't care if you copy this. Have fun. Have at it.